Welcome to the Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Mathias Nordvig.
Hello, hello. This time we're joined by Jonas Lorentzen, the giant brain behind Nibbala. He's here to talk to us about his new EP and music video, Lathu. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, guys. It seems to be sort of like a recurring event, maybe a bit too often these days, but
never too often.
I always look forward to it, man.
No, me too. Me too. And today we're going to be talking about something completely different than what we've been doing recently. So yeah, I'm psyched. I'm excited to be here today.
I know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time it feels like you're probably on more than you are because we do the story times together.
Yeah,
so it probably
yeah.
feels more frequent. And for anybody that hasn't listened to the story times, this is my chance to plug the Patreon. So just pop over to Patreon.com/Naughty Mythology podcast. Follow us on Patreon. You get a bonus episode every week. And one of them is where Jonas, me, and Matthias sit down and read saga literature. Well, Jonas reads it, does all these voices. I don't know if you want to give us a sample of one of those voices now.
Well, I can't remember any of one of the ones that I did. I really like
Cockney Sigurður.
Cockney Sigurður. Did I do a Cockney Sigurður?
You did all the voices.
I can't. I remember one time when I had to do a lot of different ones because there was like these birds sitting in a tree talking, and they all had different voices, and there kept coming more and more of them. So I had to like keep inventing new voices, like, what he's doing? Yeah, he's doing something really. It was like that kind of thing, you know. So,
there you go. If you want more of that, pop over to the Patreon. Like I say, you get a bonus episode. You can start. And when we hit 200 patrons, the coconut bikini's coming. We spoke about it last week. We're on like 187, 188, something like that. So a few more.
And then we're gonna see you in a coconut bikini, man.
And I'm gonna have to get you one as well, though.
Oh yes, and of course. I mean, we're gonna yeah.
In it together.
Yeah, we're in it together. I'll be wearing a coconut bikini too.
That makes.
Is there something I missed here? What this is about? You get 200 patrons, you have to be in a coconut bikini.
So there was one week where I was walking around the supermarket and I saw a coconut, and I was like, I was gonna buy. It's like a coconut that you could just drink the milk out of, or the water out of, and just. So I brought a coconut and sat with it, and then somehow talked myself into saying that when we hit 200 patrons, I will make a bikini out of the coconut. And I just forgot about it and didn't think any more of it until I kept getting reminded on it more and more the closer we got to 200. And now I'm terrified, so I'm making it a big deal.
Oh, you're gonna look smashing, brother. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, Jonas, you have the color of a lobster, and that's because you've been out in the sun all day. What have you been doing?
Well, it's because it's 17th of May over here in Norway, where I live, and that's the actually, funnily enough, since I'm a Dane, it's the day where they liberated themselves from the Danes and got their own country, which is kind of funny.
That's a funny way to put it.
Well, they
were
right?
taken over by Sweden, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. So it was actually more the Swedes, but it's kind of like the Liberation Day from Swedes and Danes, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So but the thing is, it's not about that really. It's not about the Swedes and the Danes, we got rid of them. It's not about that at all. It's actually some of the most cozy nationalism that I have ever been a witness to be honest, because it really is just, everyone just getting together, being happy about Norway. Norway is a great place to live, and they sing songs. Also, and
I mean, when we talk about it in sort of legal terms, what happens is that Norway got its constitution, right? So
yeah.
So that's why it's not about like, evil Swedes or evil Danes or anything like that. It's
not at all.
You can sort of like focus on just being Norwegian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and it's actually kind of an argument for why it's a good thing for a country to have strong cultural traditions and so on, because they have these strong cultural traditions about wearing these things that they call the bunad, which is basically the traditional attire, basically. I don't know how old this particular style is. I would imagine that some parts of it could be quite old, but it's like whenever you think of it's actually, the funny thing is about it that it looks very much like how mountain people dress all over the world. Actually, a lot of the styles and so on are similar to what you find in Kashmir, what you find in Sardinia, what you find in lots of different places actually. And they all wear it, and you see everyone wearing it, right? It's not just the quote unquote white Norwegians. It's like everyone, and it's really great. And I went to the school where my daughter goes to school, and they were playing all these games. It was a lot about like playing games and eating sausages and all that sort of thing. And there, of course, all the games have potato themes for some reason.
That's because, as I told a friend of mine who lives in Norway too, that she's originally not from Norway. We know her, some of us at least, Tal. As I told her that the potato is literally the epitome of cuisine in Northern Europe. Like, Danes, we know this ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's
like the potato. So it's the potato run. It's the one where you put the potato in the spoon and you have to run back, and then you have to run. If you have to run somewhere and you have to run back without dropping the potato.
The Irish don't have nothing on us Scandinavians when it comes to potatoes, man. Like, I don't know why they're so known for potatoes.
That's because we have an egg and spoon race where you put the egg on the spoon and you have to run and not drop the egg.
That's
the
so
potato
wasteful,
sounds insane to me.
Potato will survive, The potato.
I think they hard boil the egg though.
Oh, so you'll eat it after it's been on the ground or what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The next game is potato sack race, right? You put a potato sack. You basically put your whole body into a potato sack, and then
we do that
have
as well,
to race. Yeah. That's a classic one. I don't know if there was more stuff with potatoes. It probably was. But so that was that. Potato eating. Who can eat the most potatoes? That sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very cozy.
Is potato also a slur for white Norwegian, as it is like a slur for white Danes in Denmark?
No, actually, in Norway, potato again is it's actually a term of endearment. If you're a potato, if you say, what do you do at your job? If you say I'm a potato, it means you're someone who does a lot of different things.
Oh, that's so weird.
Well, it's because it's due to the fact that the potato kind of goes with everything.
What?
There's nothing you almost can't do with a potato, right? You can serve it with almost anything, right? It's because it's kind of a bland, starchy vegetable that you can just, you can do whatever you want with. So yeah, it's yeah.
But
so
you're familiar,
huh?
Sorry, you're familiar with the Danish use of the word potato, right? Like you're some doughy white dude.
Yeah. I feel
like that's closer to what we have. For like a potato over here is like someone that's a little bit dense and a bit.
Yeah.
That's how
head.
we would call. Yeah, we would call someone a potato. It's not. It's definitely certainly not a good thing.
No, in Norway it is.
There we go.
And it's a specific good thing. It's the one that can do a lot of different things.
I like that.
So yeah. What do you do? I'm just a potato, I just I do this little bit of that, little bit of that, little bit of this.
Wow,
that sort of thing.
That's good. Yeah. From what I've seen, it looks like an amazing day. It looks like the kids have a big festival and walk through the streets. Everyone gets together, has fun. Alyssa in the chat said everybody gets to eat as much ice cream as they can stomach. Yeah. It really does seem like it's national pride done well and in a completely non-offensive way. And because today it's so that balance of like having national pride, it's automatically, I think, gets people's heckles up and they think of it as a negative thing. It's lovely to see it done so
well. It was
positively.
Discussed actually. The funny thing is that for instance, in the neighboring country of Sweden, to throw the flag up of Sweden everywhere and for everyone to wear some kind of Swedish attire or whatever like that, and celebrate Sweden as a country it's absolutely unheard of. Like, it would be frowned upon. And you would be called some kind of crazy right-wing nationalist if you did that sort of thing. But over here, it seems it's really just a celebration of the country. It really doesn't go beyond on that. And of course, there was the discussion really quickly on one of the main news outlets in Norway. It was like, well, do we have to use the flag so much and all that kind of stuff? But most Norwegians that I saw when that thing was brought up was just like, shut the fuck up, like that kind of thing. Just like, let's get on with it,
It's interesting how how there are people that can have so strong sentiments against using a flag of the country that you live in.
It's insane because even like the English flag to me, because obviously not the Union flag that everyone knows, like the Union Jack. Like I don't think so much with that, but like the English flag, the red cross on the white background. Even for me as an Englishman, like when I see that, I still kind of have this, what are you into kind of thought, and it's sad because I shouldn't think like that. I should be able to be proud, but I feel like if I was like if I had some like national pride about England, then it would not.
Well, again, this kind of ties into the whole thing that you guys have been talking a lot about on the podcast, right? The whole sort of idea of misappropriation of symbols and that sort of thing. I mean, if you like in Denmark, unfortunately, it's also become a bit like that, the Danish flag is almost associated with Danish People's Party, which is the most right-wing one of the most right-wing not anymore
We've generated new crazy fuck
I know.
nuts.
Let's not get into that at all. No. I'm not here to talk about politics, but I mean, but it has been sort of hijacked by Danish People's Party, so in such a way that that flag is sort of associated with people who harbor those kind of beliefs and ideas, and you can say, well, that then it's forfeit and let it be forfeit, and that's one way of looking at it. But you can also just go, hey, well, let's put some happiness back into to those kind of things. Let's put some, I wouldn't say pride, but just some joy into it. And I feel the Norwegian tradition of 17th of May is a joyful occasion that everyone is invited to take part in. And it's just, you wish each other, hey, gratulerer med dagen, which means, we wish you a happy day, or we are, how would be the right English translation? Congratulations on the day of, of Norway.
Before we move on, I think it's probably worth knowing, like Alyssa again said in the chat, that maybe it comes down to colonialism and being the oppressor, because obviously us, England, and very much the same as like Denmark, we've been little shits. Like, so
have
you
you?
Kind of have we?
So Sweden.
I mean, again, that's a giant discussion to bring up.
I know, but again, like,
yeah, you have, and you haven't, and you have, and you haven't, and
I mean, the British Empire has definitely been kind of bad. The Denmark have had their own empire. Sweden again. And these are the three countries that we've kind of said in this discussion have gone, all three of them may be like questionable when it comes to national pride. And I don't know everything about Norwegian history, but from what we spoke about on the podcast, it seems like they've quite often been the oppressed.
Well, they kind of stopped being little shits after like the 1300s. They did have like a go at it in the 1500s, and then they were completely squashed by the Danish king. Yeah, they like in the 1200s.
Before we move on,
they didn't really have the flag back then, though. So
no, they didn't. And I think before we move on from this, which I really think we should, but I think you guys, out of all of everyone, should be careful with saying they were little shits. The British Empire was really bad. Listen. History is much more complicated than that. Sure, there was horrible things done, especially like in India and so on, by the British Empire. But I mean, history is filled with horror. History is filled with empires going up and down and up and down and up and down, and it doesn't mean that you should have self-hatred towards your country. No, I know you don't, but that's what you see a lot these days, and I think I mean, Okay, we're getting way too. This is getting way too complicated.
I get what you're saying.
These are
Jonas.
fun conversations, though.
I get what you're saying. There's a lot of historical processes out there that where people have been pretty horrible to one another.
Sure.
You can drop down in any year, pretty much,
yeah.
and then you'll find
someone
one
who was really
empire
horrible,
trying to destroy another group of people somewhere. And that has happened all over the globe. Obviously, what is contextualized nowadays are the colonial processes that the Western countries out there, the European countries in particular, have been part of. And what is actually essentially being challenged is the hegemony that they established over a couple of centuries, right? And then that, challenging that hegemony is perfectly legitimate. What becomes a bit of a problem is then that, something like a flag becomes like a symbol of that hegemony, which it isn't necessarily. It can be a symbol of a lot of different things. And it is being used for a lot of different things. I mean, Denmark is a great example. So if we look at the history of the Danish flag, I mean, that's a crusader and colonizer flag. I mean, the legend goes that we got it in Estonia when we were, beating heathens, right?
Yeah.
And conquering.
Classic.
And then we went out there and had a nice little North Atlantic empire with that flag too, right? So and flew that flag over colonial stations in West Africa and our colonies in the Caribbean and our colony in India too, right? So like that's in the same way as Union Jack is a flag that has been used by colonizers. Ours is as well, right? Mm-hmm. But what is the context for it now though? Like nowadays, Danes, they put their little flag on the Christmas tree and in birthday cakes, and they're pretty toothless in this day and age. And then you have these like curious nationalists over in a corner that are like, oh, pride and we don't like immigrants and la 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 la. And it's like they just need to be shut down.
I think we live in a very interesting time, actually. If I'm going to put a positive spin on this, because I think it is. I was just having this conversation with two of my dear friends, and about the times that we're living in right now, and the kind of stories we should probably be telling, actually, because we're living in a time where the time of the West, as we've known it, is over. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that is, we can say goodbye to that, conceptually at least, and that's okay, because things go up and things go down. But the important thing is then what story do we want to tell now? If we're going to be telling a new story, if we're going to create something new, in all the great myths about, like Ragnarok, which is a great Judgment Day or end times eschatological story, and many others from around the world, there's always something that stays, and it brings out it should at least bring out the worst in people, surely, brother will kill brother and that sort of thing, but it also brings out the best in people. It makes Vidar build up the courage that he's been building up his whole life to step into the mouth of the beast, right? It brings out these incredible qualities in people, and I think that's really what we should be talking about. And it also there's always something from that world that stays and that builds the new world. And so what from this old Western world that everyone's trying to tear down everywhere, what do we want to keep? What do we want to bring forward? And I think that's the real interesting conversation really to have, and not just a conversation about whether we should be throwing a flag around or not.
Oh, exactly. I very much agree. And, we were having this conversation on the phone together a couple of days ago,
We were indeed.
and I very much agree with your
I
perspective.
counted you in my dear friends I've been having this conversation.
Well, that's good to hear.
Hey,
But
where's my phone call?
Well, we were talking about other things, Daniel. So,
We were.
You're going through your own little Ragnarok, so
that's true.
But I so much agree, and you know what, it is a time for people who belong to this curious construction called the Western world to consider what are the things that we actually want to bring into the future and bring with us as part of humanity, because things are going to change, and there are really important cultural contributions that come out of Europe, and then there's also something that we really do not want to bring with us. Exactly. Right now, what we're seeing, though, it looks like, at least, that those people who want to bring all the bad shit with us, they have been gaining momentum, and so we have to ask ourselves, well, how like, one of the most awesome things that came out of the European encounter with the indigenous populations in North America is the Enlightenment. Like, isn't that fascinating? A bunch of Europeans go to North America, they interact with the indigenous tribes in what is now called New England, and then they realize, hey, wait a minute, like personal freedom and like equitable treatment of human beings, and like everything that becomes the French Revolution and later on and earlier on the American Revolution, for that matter, is like Europeans being inspired by Native Americans. Isn't that fucking fascinating? Like, yeah, that's something that we need to bring into the future. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm about. Like,
absolutely. All right, let's change gears, because obviously, Jonas, we're here to talk about you and your music, and we also need to get to sex, because there's almost more people watching this than watched the Alexander Ludwig episode, because we said we're going to talk about sex. So I think I think we don't get there, we're going to have a riot in the chat.
But this ties very beautifully into. Okay, Alana, did I tell you? Like I told you, do not make such a huge bloody noise when you're walking around on the podcast, and you're just banging the doors.
Sorry, I just saw a TikTok video. It was crazy and awesome.
Okay, you got to go to bed now. Okay, off you go. Jesus.
Oh, was that Dad Jonas?
That was Dad Jonas. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I think we warmed up to it pretty well with the whole, what kind of stories do we want to tell? What the hell just happened?
What the fuck happened then? I feel like you transcended.
Yeah, I was just hallelujah. That was kind of a thing going in there. No, I mean, because we just left off on like, what kind of stories do we want to tell, and I wanted to tell some stories, and I think you haven't really asked me a question, so should I just jabber on, or do you want to ask me?
Let's start with Nabala. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about how that came to fruition.
Okay.
Let's start there, and then we'll move into the video,
sex.
the album,
sex.
Because I mean,
sex.
I feel like we can't talk about the video without talking about sex.
No. But I mean, that's absolutely true, and we will talk a lot about sex. Don't you worry about that.
That's what the people are here for.
No, I have the Salt and Pepper song in my head. Let's talk about sex,
baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the yeah.
And
exactly. Let's talk about sex. No, I mean, so to try to make it terse and succinct. Basically, I chose to, some of you might know that, some of the listeners might know as well, that I was in this this little band back in 2019, Heilung, and I chose to leave Heilung in August of 2019. That was when I made my mind up to do it, and it was literally because I just felt, to be completely candid with you, I was a little bit tired of the whole Viking thing, to be honest. I mean, I actually wanted to start talking about something completely different, or not completely different, because it would still have some of that whole mythological thing to it. That was still what I wanted to do, but I didn't necessarily want to create music in a kind of Viking Nordic garb or whatever. But then I was contacted by Robert Eggers's people, and they asked if I wanted to be a part of some of the sessions, some of the music sessions with the Northmen, and that led, of course, to, and we can talk about the Northmen later if we want to do that a little bit, but that led to me having a role in the movie and writing some songs for it and doing some voice coaching and all that kind of stuff, which was extremely fascinating. But in that session, the first session that I went to for the Northmen, I met Sebastian Gainsborough, and Sebastian Gainsborough is one of the composers of the score. And he and I had a really great vibe from the very beginning, and I was looking for someone to write this music with. And in a conversation with him, because actually the music I wanted to write was, I wanted to write a whole record. I'm not going to say too much about it because I am going to make that record later, but I wanted to write a whole record dealing with rites of passage, basically. Different kinds of rites of passage. And I wanted to draw inspiration from all over the world, basically. This was also one of our first conversations, as far as I remember, Matthias. We were talking about this project as well.
Yes.
But I kind of realized pretty quickly that would take me years to do. And I needed to not take years to do my first project, So I went, I'm doing this Northman thing now. I said, fuck, let's squeeze one last drop out of this whole Viking bullshit, So so what was that?
Shan, bleep that, Shan. Jonas.
Now we're really gonna get canceled by the entire Viking crowd.
No, but honestly, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I obviously still absolutely love everything that has to do with Nordic mythology and all that kind of stuff. It's just when you've been playing in a big band for 2 years and there's fucking antlers everywhere, and it's get away. So I thought, what's the simplest? I mean, what's the base story actually? What's the foundation of everything? And I've had a lot of conversations. I've actually had some personal experiences also, where I had sort of started to think about my own sexuality and the way I relate to sex and all these things in a completely different way. I'm not going to get into what that was, because that would be transgressing some personal borders, not just for me, but for others as well. But I just really felt inspired to talk about sex. And so I called Matthias up and said, hey, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about sex in Nordic mythology.
Whenever I think about talking about sex, I always think of Matthias as well.
Exactly. Right?
Oh, wow. You guys are making me blush now. Wow.
Those big tattooed arms, and oh my God.
And the coconut bra.
In the coconut bra.
You wait for that coconut. You wave that coconut bikini.
No, so actually,
we should put that behind a paywall and make a lot of money.
Again, only dance.
Only dance. Only dance. So I mean, sexuality and fertility and all these things, it is really the basis of everything, right? It is the fuel, it is the fire, basically, that fuels the whole machinery. If you look into the Kundalini system of India, you have the system of the chakras, right? And there's always this talk of when you're sitting and you're doing Kundalini rising meditation or yoga, you're always channeling energy from your groin area and up, and it comes out your head at the end if you're a skilled enough practitioner. So I basically started talking to Mathias about, so what are the myths in Nordic mythology that surrounds everything that has to do with sexuality, all the sides of sexuality, you know, the longing bit, the sort of romantic, silly young love bit, the more dark sides of sexuality as well, where things can take a terrible turn, and also the ecstatic bits of sexuality. And so we spent a lot of time digging, and I was getting inspired from what Mathias said, and Mathias was getting inspired from what I said, I think, and you know, started looking at different things, and Nena, the mother of Alana, who is a philosopher who studies the philosophy of sex, really. So we had lots of conversations as well, and yeah, we sort of came up with these 3 themes that I already alluded to, and those are the 3 themes that go through the whole record. So it starts with the theme that Mathias came up with, the word lustus, because it is the root, I suppose, of lust, right?
Yeah,
Mathias. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Please help. Okay, don't leave me here.
Don't leave him hanging.
I was agreeing. I was saying yes.
Okay. I didn't hear. No. So it's the root word of lust, and so that encompasses longing, desire, the young love, as I said. And then we came up with the second theme, which was lathu, which means to sort of let it in. So it's everything. So it's also Mathias, you can talk a little bit more about the word, but it basically, in terms of the thematics here, it is basically also the strife between lovers, unrequited love, you know, the franticness that can occur in the middle of a relationship, for instance, between 2 lovers.
I mean, so yeah, actually, like the history of that word is in sort of like a Nordic Germanic context. It's really fascinating because it is a magic word that we find carved in runes on these like golden bracteate medallions that, you know, seem to be associated with Odin. We're not entirely sure what the whole context is, but they seem associated with Odin. Sometimes you have like this, you know, guy riding what appears to be a horse on them as well, and in some cases this guy is mostly just a head with like a hairdo that turns into a raven. So there's like something really funky going on here. And Lathu then shows up on some of these in some of these inscriptions, and it's a word that connotes sexual interaction of some kind, but also connotes such things as war and battle. And we still,
yeah.
And it, you know, in the Scandinavian languages, we still use it in that in those ways too. It's associated with the English word let. So you can think about, if you're an English speaker, you can think about in how many contexts do you use the word let's do this, and so on, right? So in the same way, it is being used in the Scandinavian languages to suggest similar things. And the most fascinating thing is, of course, that in this prime myth about how Odin retrieves the meat of poetry, which is this cosmic substance that gives skalds and other learned people their ability to see clearly what the world is about and thus create, for instance, poetry, right? Odin copulates with Gunnlöð, this underworldly figure, female, whose name means something like invitation to battle, right? And Löð is the Old Norse version of the word Lathu. So there's deep connection right there. And going back to this whole thing about Kundalini, right? What happens when Odin has to go into that mountain in which she sits at the bottom, right? He turns himself into a snake, and then he crawls down there, and then he rises out of that mountain as an eagle afterwards, bringing this holy liquid. There's some pretty powerful Kundalini in that, if you ask me.
Yes, I mean, if you've ever seen a depiction of the Kundalini rising, it's always snakes curling up like that, turning into some kind of bird, some kind of big bird, probably an eagle at the top. So that's a very, very ancient iconography for sure. Talking about this process, Sophie of Chaos just wrote like battle in bed. It's funny you should say that because, when you think about it, it's kind of, sex is kind of a crazy thing, right? I mean, especially for the woman. I mean, how is it that females find it extremely awesome to be sort of jumped upon by someone who's twice their size, who just pounds the fuck out of them? I mean, it's actually is kind of weird,
you're
right?
you're way with words, Jonas.
Well, if it's good, that's what's happening, right? I mean, so I mean, it's not the only thing that happens, of course, but I mean, it kind of is a crazy thing, right? I mean, it is, very close to violence. Actually, it's funny. I saw Gina Carano, who was one of the women in the US who started making MMA for women popular. She said at an interview once that that she felt that there was very little difference between when she stepped into the ring and fought someone and sex. And I found that extremely fascinating because that fighting is so intimate. They are wrestling. They are, it's an extremely intimate thing. And of course, they're smashing the shit out of each other, and you're not doing that in sex, but the intimacy. Well, sometimes you are. That's, if that's your thing.
Depends on what you're into, I guess.
That's what you're into, go ahead, that kind of thing. It can be nice. But anyway, I've always been a big fan of, that pleasure, pain should be a bit of, always take a little part of pleasure. A really, really good meal should also be a little spicy, or, that kind of thing. So, I mean, yeah, for sure. And, so there is a battle element in sexuality for sure, definitely. But there's also an ecstatic element. There's also the element where you lose the connection to yourself, even in some sense, and you completely merge with the other person, and you can't really tell where one starts and the other one begins or ends or whatever. It's like a total mergence where it's almost like on a very powerful psychedelic or something like that. Your ego completely dissolves. And so that's the last theme. That's Wodush Alu, which was again a combination of two words that Matthias came up with. Wodush meaning something like ecstatic or frenzy, or like a complete explosion of some sense, and Alu also being one of those ancient words, right, Matthias, that you find everywhere, meaning something like power or
magic. So again, Wodus is also a word that's connected to Odin. Odin comes from that same root word, meaning something like ecstatic or frantic, frenzy, and Alu is a word that's attached to that Odin cult, whatever it looks like in like the 400s in Europe. And Alu also produces the word beer, ale, as we know it in English.
Exactly, yeah.
Öl in Danish, Scandinavian, and so on, right? So there's that curious connection too. And it's, of course, because, intoxication makes you frantic, frenzy, so it makes perfect sense that there is an overlap here. And I mean, my personal theory on all of this is that this early Odin cult that you see in the southern Scandinavian elite in particular, and could also include northern Germany in this part, because it's from like the first couple of centuries AD and onwards that it sort of like develops. My personal theory is that it's essentially an outlier of the Dionysian mysteries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's got to
so
be.
yeah, so it's got to be. So
I mean,
that's what we're dealing
it makes
with here.
sense. It makes
Right?
sense. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, Matthias, and it makes sense also because of the severe clampdown there was on all these kind of mysteries and Dionysian mysteries or Eleusinian mysteries or whatever they all were, Bacchanalias and so on. There was such a clampdown on that in the 300s and 400s in Southern Europe. So it makes sense also that that some of these ideas would have survived further north and perhaps even gotten further boosted. I mean, I love that theory, and I think someone should look into it more.
Yeah.
Someone should do something, Matthias, about this.
Should they now? Maybe they are.
Perhaps they are already.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah, because I also, I think also it makes also perfect sense that it's a kind of drink of power. But then we are moving into whether there were any in some of these cults, at least, whether there were any psychedelics involved as well in this, and I think the reason why a lot of scholars, this is my personal theory, goes like, well, what are you talking about? No one's ever looked into that. We never found any of it. Well, have you looked? I mean, have you really looked? Have you really tested all the vessels that you found all over the place to see whether they would have had an ergotized beer in it, for instance, that would have been an LSA kind of drink, or whether there was any kind of mushrooms in it or henbane or whatever the flip it could have been that people would have used in such fertility rituals, which many of them are. I remember also in the beginning of my research period on this to create Nibbala, I remember, or this was not exactly in the beginning, it was after we'd been speaking for a couple of months at that time, but I remember meeting someone at a conference somewhere, and he had studied some of these blonde, blue-eyed tribes that are in Pakistan, which some people believe could have been perhaps there was a lot, there's always been these back and forth, people going south, people going north and that sort of thing. That could have been maybe someone from the north who would have traveled back through the Indo-European trail and gotten kind of stuck in some of these valleys here. Because you see a lot of similarities also in their stories and so on to the Nordic stories and so on and so forth. It's super fascinating, but a completely different topic in of itself. But I asked him because I just got curious. So I was like, so you've witnessed a lot of their rituals and so on. He said, yeah, a lot. He was like, okay, well, were some of these or how many of these rituals that they did were fertility rituals? He looked at me like, all their rituals are fertility rituals. So it was like all of them, like, okay. So I mean, of course, the whole idea of sexuality and fertility and all these things have been something that has always been something that people have been spending a lot of energy on and a lot of time on and a lot of focus on these subjects. Of course, it makes total sense because it also relates to the earth. I mean, the human sexuality relates to the sexuality of the earth in some sense. You plant the seed, you see it grow, that whole thing.
Everything relies on reproduction, so the whole existence relies on that. So it's no surprise that it's kind of everywhere and tied to everything.
Of course not. It's just that we in the last couple of 100 years at least have pushed it more and more to the side, and we aren't talking about it in the same way. I mean, when I look at the modern world, I find it kind of fascinating in some ways, that sexuality or sex is everything. You see it everywhere. I remember in when I was in high school, I remember there was this big hubbub about these commercials where they were selling some kind of energy drink called Cult, and it was literally it was literally a woman's tits, like tits out with a cult right in between them, and it was everywhere. I mean,
was that in the 90s? Because that's a 90s advert if I ever.
That is so much a 90s that were or late 2000s,
early 2000s.
Yeah, I remember it. Like
the American Pie kind of era.
Yeah. It was.
But I mean, come on, guys! It's still a lot there, and I think we are as a culture and so on. Culturally, we are moving in other directions, but at least for a long time, sexuality today has maybe because it's been so suppressed and so on, has become something that is just like everywhere now, like with children, it's like boobs and that kind of thing all the time. So it's kind of juvenile in the way we talk about sexuality today, broadly speaking, of course. So I think, I think my view on sexuality growing up was very warped, and I had to have some pretty intense experiences to realize how objectifying I was, how what kind of unnatural relationship I had to sexuality, how unnatural my relationship to sexuality actually was. And if it was, it should be something we should try to be much more relaxed about in some sense, and at the same time venerate and praise in some sense. I think that would be a great thing to see.
It's too shied away from. I know.
Yeah, because it's either riddled with guilt, right? It's either sort of a guilty thing that everyone feels guilty about in some sense, or it's like you can't sell anything without slapping a couple of boobs on the commercial or something like that, So it's kind of both at the same time.
So the interesting thing about sort of like that commercialized use of sex, right, is that it's completely infertile. Like it in every form that it is presented to you in the public that way, the only reason it's there is because somebody has some other product they want to push on you. The sexuality of the sex in such an ad is inessential, right? It's just to get your attention. And that's really all it is. So that also means that all those things that come with real intimate and personal experiences between individuals, however many there are involved, that's up to the individuals themselves, right? That's not present in that representation of sex that comes in an ad, right? So what it is that it's an empty shell. And on the other hand, right, so that's sort of like a public projection of sex and sexuality that's out there all the time. And then on the other hand, you have these people who, for religious reasons, want to restrict other people's sexual experiences, right?
Definitely.
And we see that in the current political climate of the United States, right, where you have people who want to ban abortion, because ultimately banning abortion will, in their minds, I think, prevent people from having sex, because that's the ultimate goal for some of these.
I don't think you can ever prevent people from having sex.
No, that has never happened.
No.
And see, this is also interesting when you look at what was written, this first draft of the Supreme Court's opinion on the subject of abortion. They're literally talking about a need for a supply of babies for adoption. So they're expecting people to have sex and then breed babies that are then sent off to adoption, which is pretty fucked up.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right. So that's something to keep in mind here. But aside from that, you also have to consider, well, what what are we actually seeing in this these restrictive attitudes? And it's not just Christians, of course. We also see it with Muslims, we see it with Hindus, we see it with a lot of different people who justify different ideas about how people should live with their religion, right? And what is the purpose? Well, what you're doing is that you're creating a nuclear family, right? By being restrictive around sexual activity. You say sex is only for a man and a woman in a marriage, right? So then you create a nuclear family where intimacy is isolated, right? It only happens between these two individuals. And what does that mean? Well, it means that, because if we look at the biology of intimacy between human beings, it's a lot more than just exchanging fluids. Right? There are all of these emotions that come with them, ideas of loyalty, for instance, and entanglements. Like we join our persons in different ways, right? And that creates what we could call warm feelings, for instance, between people who do these things. And so essentially what happens if sex is free is that people have the opportunity to do that with more people than just that one person they married, right?
Yeah.
But if you restrict sex in that sense and keep it within that nuclear family, right, then people will not have that opportunity. And what does that mean? Well, people who feel isolated in general, they're easy to control, always. At any level.
think for me personally, I think that's such a weird idea, because I think everybody's different and you're gonna do what you prefer. Because even in like the most free world, for me personally, like I've never had an interest in like having a bunch of one night stands or like a bunch of individual people. For me, I like that connection with an individual person. And I think sex is better when it's with one person and you get to know them inside and out, and you connect and you know what each other likes, and it becomes this very close thing. So I think it's odd that like this idea of that if it's free that everybody's just going to go around and fuck everybody, because I think it just depends on the individual person. Because like
absolutely,
I can only speak for myself, but I prefer that kind of like that one person and just to get to know them, what you like. I think that's always going to lead to a better experience, because you know what I like, I know what you like, and it's just going to go somewhere else rather than this like one quick fumble of like 2 hours and go, was that good for you? Yeah, it was all right for me. Yeah.
I agree, and it's an interesting thing to think about where this might have come from, right? I mean, because I mean, if as I said before, and as we alluded to, if fertility and therefore sexuality was extremely important, guys, I'm just gonna do like this so I get a bit more light over here.
You look beautiful no matter what, Jonas.
Oh dear, thank you so much. Gosh, you also know how to make a man blush.
I can't tell if you're blushing or if you just burnt from today.
I'm just constantly blushed at the moment. Fits perfectly for the sex episode, right? No, I mean,
before we 1 second, sorry to interrupt. Before we get too deep, I think this episode we're gonna go long with this. I think let's just make, because we haven't even spoken about your video yet. Let's whatever happens with this episode, let's just keep this going as long as we want. And then the bonus episode we'll figure out later. You'll come back and do the story time. I know, because we're like an hour and 10 minutes in already. I think let's just do a long episode. Fuck it, and then we'll figure out the bonus episode later. All
right,
because I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. I agree. Let's not pull the brakes on anything that's
exactly
going full speed. I agree. But where was I? Yeah, the whole thing about fertility. I mean, if religions that came before Christianity were focused on these kind of things a lot, in order to clamp down on those religions, in order to make sure that these religions didn't have any power anymore. I mean, one good thing is to shun all such things as well, right? I mean, so I don't know exactly how it would work and how it did work, but I think it makes a lot of sense that this is probably a very old problem.
Just read Saint Augustine, the Civitate Dei, the City of God. He rants about it in it. So they're good. Like we have good solid classical literature on it, actually.
Yeah.
Early
but
Christian
it's probably started even before that. I mean, it didn't Emperor Augustus also like clamp down a lot on sexuality?
He was very pious, or whatever you want to call it. No, I mean, this is not a feature of a particular religion. This is sort of like a zeitgeist that shows up, and then sometimes it's more imposing than others, than at other times. And you can see that with European Christianity throughout the ages. You can see Christianity is in some centuries more relaxed about it than in other centuries. So no, it's not this, like all those people who justify their Puritanism in religion should listen to this, because it means that it has nothing to do with their religion. It has everything to do with their own ideas of morality, or whatever you want to call it, and then they should just keep it to themselves.
Well, we also in many ways, I mean, and we were also talking about this the other day, Matthias. I mean, we removed for quite a long time, at least, and of course, maybe it ebbed and flowed also throughout the hegemony of Christianity in the quote unquote Western world, but and everywhere else for that matter, where Christianity, where was Christendom ruled, right? But one thing that also I am very interested in these days, it is what we talked about before, the Dionysian aspects of religion, the wild man, where you're not, I mean, there's always this idea, Dionysus against Apollo, right? Apollo is seen as sort of in some sense the stoic, the rational, all these things, responsible, fatherly, and so on, where Dionysus is the wild man, and that is not afraid of the darkness in some sense, is not afraid of being torn to pieces and put back together again, that kind of thing. And I think today it would be really great for us mythologically or in terms of the stories that we tell, to get back to the wild man, to let ourselves be a little bit wild, to not be so afraid of these dark sides of our humanity, because they're there, and if we suppress them, they're just going to become like a monster that's going to tear us up from the inside. But if we allow ourselves to go into them and to wrestle with our own shadow and with our own desires and the mad sides of ourselves, the uncontrollable sides of ourselves, and I think that's the only real way we can, in some sense, learn anything from it, and perhaps in that sense become a more Apollonian, stoic person once we have done all those things.
I mean,
that makes any sense at all.
That it makes perfect sense to me, because you know what, my friend, Stoicism is my preferred flavor of philosophy when it comes to such things as morality and ethics and interpersonal relations on both a state level and a regular ass level. That's not the best phrasing out there. But my point is that as somebody who very much cherishes Stoic philosophy, I very much agree with you on this, because you also have to take into consideration that the functional human being, the human being who can go out in the world and rationally approach others, I don't think that human being can exist without the irrational,
without having grappled with it as well in earnest, you could say.
exactly.
without having grappled with your own
And this
irrational sides, your own dark
and
sides.
this is where ritual becomes really important, because what is ritual? Ritual is essentially a space that you open up in your existence where the normal rules don't apply.
Yeah.
There are other rules present there. And that also means that other things can happen. So going back to, for instance, this idea of like, you know, Puritan societies that don't allow sex. Yeah, you can have those types of societies, but you know, you can also see that some of these societies, they can be very strict in terms of like rules about sex and sexuality, you know, generally in society. And then they have these crazy ass rituals over here where they're just like doing all kinds of stuff that you're like, oh, okay, wow, whoa, did he really do that? Right? So that tells you a little bit about how these things also work for us as humans. Like it depends on the space that we're in, and literally both a physical and a mental space, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think should we move on to your video? Because otherwise,
well, it actually was going to say it's a good segue into it. Actually,
I think before we go into that, I want to say I think it'll become a lot more free when people stop actually giving a fuck what other people do. Like everybody wants to stick their nose in everybody else's business. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. As long as it's consensual and everybody's involved wants to be there, it doesn't fucking matter what anybody does behind closed doors or wherever. Like, that's their business, whether it's man or woman, man, whatever. I don't give a fuck. You do you, enjoy yourself. And if more people were like that, I think the world would be a better place. Because everybody just wants to stick their nose in and kind of go, oh, what are you doing over there? And then judge. And it's just like, just do you. Just do you, and yeah, just go over there and do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care, and everyone would just be happy. Who cares what people do? Whether it's fucking, not even just sexually though. I think just in general in life, just stop caring what everybody else does and wanting to be a part of their life. Just focus on yourself, and then let's all move forward a little bit better.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you say not just sexual, because sexual seems to be the one that is almost the most talked about these days, even more than race in some sense, because it's relating to gender, of course. You know,
everybody wants
your
to
sexual
judge.
Preference. You know,
yeah, it's insane. Everybody wants to judge everybody for what they want to do or look.
Yeah, but it's also the
like,
other way around. It's a kind of funny thing, right? I mean, because gender is such a hot topic these days, and it's basically it's kind of a funny mix between, at least the way I observe it in some sense, and you know, I'm speaking as one who just made a whole press photo series of myself dressed up as a Viking queen, actually, and with a lot of sailor stuff all over me, you know, like because I mean that's something again that ties into Nordic mythology, the whole idea of you can't actually do magic without taking on qualities, female qualities, let's say, or classically female energy type things. This is why Loki you know, mocks Odin for banging the drum like a woman when he does his magic and that kind of stuff, right? So coming back to the whole discussion today, it's like, you know, the people that are sort of the very conservative types, they seem to be extremely bothered with the idea of gender because, you know, all these pink-haired, gender fluid, this and that, LGBTQ, blah 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 blah, are sort of taking the center stage in some sense in the societal debate and political debate and so on, and they can't really have that because that breaks their view of things. So they are extremely bothered with it. At the same time, you have people of all these different colors being extremely bothered with everyone needing to accepting them, like everyone should accept them. But the thing is, you can't force a very conservative person to accept you necessarily. You know, it's not like that's not something you can do by fiat. It's just not possible, and it's created this extreme a situation where everyone is doing exactly the opposite of what you're saying or what you're suggesting, Dan, which I agree with you totally. If we all just didn't give a fuck, probably it would have been better, right? Who cares if you don't want to be gay? Who cares if you want to be gay? Who cares if you do want to be a woman? Who cares if you don't want to be a woman?
It's just who cares. Yeah, that's the point. Like, who gives a fuck?
Let me just reiterate this Stoic principle. You're a citizen first. Secondly, your identity.
Yes. Good principle.
Right. Yeah. Like your purpose, you live in a society of some kind, 3 different people living in 3 different societies here, and your primary purpose in that society is to live up to what it means to be a citizen in that society. Also, even if you're not a citizen in that society, like you, Jonas, you're not a citizen in Norway. I'm not a citizen in the US. We're both immigrants.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is our duty.
But we have to act as if we are,
it is our duty to live up to the standards of what it means to be a citizen in each of these countries. Yeah. And then you go from there. Your identity comes after that. Your identity as a Danish national comes after being somebody who lives up to the principles of citizenship in Norway, and the same for me here in the US. So I think that's the really important thing to keep in mind here. And I think, as you are pointing out, people are forgetting this left and right, like literally everywhere. They think that the standards for their particular identity need to apply to the rest of the citizenship out there, right? Which is just not meaningful,
No, it isn't. It isn't at all. And but it's a fascinating time, and it is, as we say in Danish, in brydningstid. I mean, a time where we wrestle with these ideas and these questions about what does it mean. There's also the old idea between I think it's the Aristotelian view and the god damn it, I can't remember the other one, but it's the whole idea of like whether you think that you should, and probably the Aristotelian mirrors the Stoic in some sense, or maybe it's the Epicurean, I can't remember, but the point is that it's whether you think the laws of the land are the most important. That's the sort of a restricted view in some sense, and you should follow those laws, or whether you feel the people who govern the laws or who enact the laws should be given most power. So the idea is that the one side of them say, well, if we can just get good people to make the decisions on a societal level, we just have to get the best people in charge, then everything will be fine. But the other ones say, well, you can't actually make sure that you get the best people, because people lie, and they're so they could be making a show out of it, so you can't actually be sure of that. So we need to have very, very low resolution laws, strong laws that everyone can abide by, and then maybe they can change a little bit here or there, but you have to be very careful. That's the whole conversation in the US right now, also with the Constitution and on all these kind of things. How much should you adhere to the Constitution, and how malleable should you be with it? But that was a crazy aside. How did we get here?
let's talk about your video before we go too long.
Well, no, I think we should, but it was because we're also talking about all these things about like transformation, because we live in a time of transformation. I'm just going to put on a light and a glass of water, and then I'll talk about transformation and the video for sure.
I mean,
we need to tell Shan to somehow work in Jonas cross-dressing into the title of this episode.
We do. We do indeed. We'll come up with a good title. I mean, this episode does not disappoint so far. The chat, I love our chat. Our chat feature is the
fire.
It's the best thing ever. I mean, if you listen to this, you can watch live if you support us on Patreon. It's literally the price of buying us a cup of coffee a month, and you get to watch live and join in our chat. I think we have the best little community ever. we have such good listeners. The chat is just ridiculous every single episode. Yeah, I love it. I love I don't want to say fans. I hate the word fans, but listeners. I think they're the best.
Absolutely. They're really going crazy about seeing the cross dressing. So I can show you that if you want to.
Oh, you can? You can show us?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not?
I mean, Jonas, at Midgaspel, you might be in trouble if you show me these pictures.
Ooh.
Well,
Shit, I gotta
did you just confess your love to him right there?
Maybe. I love you.
Oh man,
I love both of you.
Yeah, but you're
love
making
you
me a
too,
little jealous, man.
how do I do this?
I'm not sure you can. Shan would have to give you permission to share, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll share it.
We'll put them.
Well, I mean, go to my Instagram. I mean, there are some of my cross-dressing Viking Queen images on Instagram. So you can just go to my Instagram, Nibala Music, and I got to plug my Instagram a little ahead of time. The video. Let's get to that because
let's get to that.
Yeah, you guys saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you haven't seen it, pause the fucking episode right now. Jonas, tell people where they can go and watch
just
it.
Have to search
pause
for
the episode,
Nibala.
go watch it.
Yeah,
it's an experience.
You just have to search for Nibala on YouTube, Nibala Music or Lathu, which then would be, I suppose, it's got that weird letter in it, doesn't it? I think if you write Lathu, you'll also find it. But Nibala is your safe bet, Nebala on YouTube, and you will find the video. Yeah, it's and it's not the whole video actually. It's the whole video is coming out on 3rd of June. Mm-hmm. So we decided to split it into 2 parts, and I can't tell you too much about what's going to be in the whole video when it comes out on the 3rd of June, along with another single. But we intended actually to make a whole narrative. So it's like 14 minutes long. So it's actually like a short film almost, or a short art film, you could say. But I realized when we were getting towards the end of it, I was thinking, and it was also through talking to actually Ed Gamester, was one of the guys who saw it and gave me some good advice. And we sort of realized that making the first music video that Nibala ever sends out is a 14-minute long art film. It's maybe not so smart. So we took the part of the film which is just the music video, and which is basically a man, it's a man who clearly has started some kind of ritual and is inviting his different sides of himself, I would say. I think at least that's how I thought about it conceptually, that it was different sides of himself, different archetypes that he's sort of inviting into his circle. And he's grappling with them in some sense. And they're dancing and they're showing him visions. And he at some point, it becomes too much for him and he tries to turn away, and he's confronted with as we talked about, a kind of Odinic, but the one side of Odin that is the Apollonian side, you could say, the fatherly, stoic, statesman-like character, and he's offered to go with him. He's offered to join him, but what he does is that he realizes he can't do it, and he needs to go back and grapple with his desires, his dark sides, these different sides of himself in earnest, in order for him to truly gaining any kind of insight. Here we have a llama again making noise, but to truly gaining any kind of insight about himself. So that was the thought behind it. Now, when the whole movie comes out, you realize why he did this. I mean, why did this character choose to go into the woods and do this crazy thing? And I think quite a lot of people, when they see this, I hope they will watch it and not go like, oh, I'm busy, and go somewhere else. It really does need your attention, like any art film.
It's a journey.
It is a journey, but I mean, I'm talking about when the whole movie comes out on the 3rd of June, because the first part of the movie, which is I think is 6 minutes or something like that, it is literally just a lot of imagery, and leading up to this point where he then sits in the forest. And why does he do this? What prompts him to do it? What kind of realization about himself? And I think a lot of people it might be a little bit shocking, but the idea was really to create the image of a man who's clearly hasn't gone through a kind of rite of passage, who clearly hasn't gone to the depths of himself in some sense, who is ashamed of himself in many ways, and therefore cannot really live up to his responsibilities as a fully fledged human being, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Do you have any questions about it?
So, what is going on around that fire?
What is not going on around that fire, I think, is the question.
That's the thing. So I think it's a good place to start.
I mean, you see these different characters dancing, right? There's the trickster-like character with a gigantic horn as a penis. And then there's the sort of dark raven woman, who is, I think we were very inspired by imagery of like we were looking at a lot of different like old movies and this kind of thing, and the old witches and that sort of thing, but also Kali from Indian mythology, a sort of black goddess of some sense, a goddess of pure rage. Then there's the big man. He's actually he was one that you also gave some help on, Matthias. Because I was thinking very much, I was looking at old Renaissance paintings of Thor, which is always like this big, he's always sort of like full of rage, but he's also stoic, and he's also sort of beautiful and that sort of thing. And we ended up, I remember you telling me, I think it was oak trees that he's connected to. And we ended up finding for his penis piece, or whatever you would call it, like his the thing that was going to be hanging in front of his cock, basically, was a lot of oak bark that we found. So that was actually woven into it. No one's going to ever notice that. but now they
that's
know.
That's the beauty behind these things, that when you add all these little, and it's the same with the Northman as a movie as a whole. I think that when you weave all these tiny little things in, it all amasses to a bigger thing. And does it with the movie. I mean, we spoke kind of off air, and your music videos, it's very clearly kind of, you're working with the same people and has that same kind of feel to it. It's very beautiful to look at. It's a very pretty thing to look at, and you enjoy it, and you're going on, like I say, you're going on this journey. It's good to watch.
That's good. Because I mean, well, that's really great, because I mean, you can put all these iconographies and imageries and all that kind of stuff. You can do as much research, but if it doesn't come out as something beautiful or even terrifyingly beautiful or whatever on screen, then it doesn't really matter, of course. But yeah, we spend, Christina, the director, and we spend, I think, 6, 7, 8 months, maybe even, just on the research period and developing the concept and the ideas and that sort of thing. And we had a session with Robert Eggers for about an hour, where we talked a lot with him. We talked a lot, and Christina and him talked a lot about sort of quite technical things about how should we, when we're trying to tell this story, are we going in for slightly longer shots, or should we, so we decided a few things about, like, for instance, like only having one camera, and we decided not to do it on a dolly, which is like boring stuff, but it's just about how maneuverable the camera should be and that kind of thing. And then, of course, we had the great choreographer Stephen Moynihan. Is just an amazing choreographer who also worked on the Northman. And we had Marie-Gabrielle Rocher, who was the chief choreographer. She didn't go with us to Ukraine, thankfully, because that would have been horrible for her, because it was fucking so hard. It was so hard. And I couldn't have been able to give her proper accommodation and so on. So she would have been just like, we would have ruined her life. But so Stephen is a little younger and was able to rough it out a little bit more, 30-hour shoots and that kind of thing. But Stephen is really brilliant. So they both worked with me and with everyone on the Northman. They were the one who did the Berserker dance and all these different things. Did my dance that I did, and so on and so forth. And so we had an incredible team around us. And Christina is a brilliant director. Christian, who was the DOP, is a great DOP. And then last but we had a great production designer as well in Sina, and last but not least, Sarah Boo, our editor, is just really, really good. And she's good friends with Rune Janu, the good old Nordic animist. So she's already deep in this kind of stuff. So she got like all the shit we threw at her. She was like, yeah, that's great. I'm gonna definitely do that. And he's drinking something henbane. Yeah, let's go for it. Shit.
It means a lot. It means a lot when you find somebody that's already interested in.
Oh yeah.
I struggled with that the whole entire time of running Horns of Odin. That when it comes to like ever getting anybody else involved, whether it's for a video or for photography or whatever it is, if you can find somebody that at least understands this whole thing, it's so much easier than trying to find somebody on the outside and then explain it to them. It's so important to have somebody who has that understanding.
Yeah, they can be as great as you would like at their craft. If they don't understand the stuff that we're dealing with, the source material and that kind of thing, if they don't have any connection to that kind of thing, it can be difficult. Christina, I would say, didn't necessarily have a connection to Nordic thing, but she is a director who thinks in mythology and these kind of things. I mean, it's if you see some of her other work, it is all very esoteric and that sort of thing. She loves all kind of esoteric and occult and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a no-brainer for her as well. And then, I mean, I really cannot stress it enough how absolutely. Can you hear Alana singing in the background?
A little bit. That's fine.
No, I can't, but let's.
She's in the shower right now, singing at the top of her lungs.
That's fucking awesome, though.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I mean, enjoy life. If you can't sing in the shower, where the fuck can you sing?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm not going to say anything to her. As long as it's not bothering any of you, then
it's fine.
I didn't pick up on it until you said. But let her live.
I agree. But I mean, so and I have to also mention the production team in Ukraine. Just incredible people. All of them were just, and the actors as well, and the actresses. I mean, it was just such an incredible experience to make this video. It really was. When we were doing the interviews with the people that ended up being the different characters, it was so crazy because when we talked to them about the character that we had developed for them, they all had some kind of personal connection to that aspect in some sense. I can't go too deep in it because we'd be here all night, but it was really, really amazing. Go to bed.
Stop singing in the shower.
No, don't stop singing.
Never stop singing in the shower.
Please bloody sleep. No, but I mean, it was quite amazing. They all sort of felt really, really, again, like we talked about, connected to the material and so on and so forth. And so yeah, it was an incredible experience. The night when we shot that ritual scene, which became the whole music video, we literally left at 6 a.m, drove out to this forest outside Odessa, and we were back, I think, at 2:00 in the afternoon the next day.
Nice.
It was really long and really hardcore and cold as hell. I mean, you have to see, if you see the video, they're naked, literally. These guys. I'm the only one who's kind of sort of wearing clothes, and it's like 3 degrees. Like, of course, they're around the fire, but
still cold.
Still cold. And I remember this one time where I Alessia, who had like black what do you call it, contact lenses, and to get her eyes to look completely black. She's the one who played the Black Raven. Because of the smoke from the fire, she when we stopped, she had to close her eyes because it hurt so much. And the guys were also wrapped in a mixture of mud and pig's fat. The two guys, because it made that sort of special effect that we were looking for, and that started itching as well. So they were literally hurting all over, and they'd been going on for hours and hours. And it was 4:00 in the morning, and I was like, okay, we need these 2 last shots. And I asked Christina and the DOP, can we finish the movie without these 2 last shots? And she was like, it's not ideal, but we can. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to these guys, and because they were freezing, and it was crazy. And so I went to them, I said, okay, listen, we can stop now. We don't want you guys to get hurt and all that kind of stuff. And I remember Julia, the plays the nymph, she just looked at me, she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We went all the way out here to finish this goddamn video. So we're finishing this video, and these 2 shots are important. We've been practicing them back in Odessa, and like, we're gonna fucking do it. It's like, I was like, okay, that's great. Like, it was just amazing. I couldn't believe it, because they were really, yeah, they was insane. I mean, and another funny little story. Andre, who plays the trickster, he was one of those guys who just gets into character. So when we put the cock on him, he was a trickster until
What
we
a
took
sentence!
the cock off.
What a fucking
Like,
no, Jonas. Let's roll back.
When we put the cock on.
Jonas is frozen. That's how he's saying that fucking sentence is. I mean, how many times in your life can you just say, when we put the cock on him?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the things you do in general. Like, I'm sure some could say it a lot.
But for sure, for sure.
No, Jonas, don't.
Oh, he's gone.
No,
I mean, he'll be back. He will be.
And
He's
there
back.
we are.
He's back. Can we? Right, we're what? I haven't even looked
You're
how
muted,
far into
Jonas.
this we are. But can I run for a wee? I think it's the first time in like 117 episodes I've had to go pee mid-episode, but I'm enjoying this way too much for us to
Go pee, man. Go
Yeah,
do
go
your thing.
pee.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause it
Yes.
and then I'm gonna come back and talk more. Where were we at?
Where did I fall out?
You
Right after
Yo,
you said, when
put
we
the cock on him. Put the cock on him. Let's get back
And
to
that's
put
what
the
we've
cock
been
on him.
ranting about ever since.
Put the cock on him.
I've just been sitting and ranting about putting the cock on him on my own. Okay.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh my god.
Yeah, so ever since we put the cock on him, that's where I got caught off.
Yep.
Great.
And then Daniel and I have just been giggling like schoolgirls about it ever since.
Yeah, ever since, of course.
Oh
Yeah. No, well, I will wait till he's back from his wee.
Wonderful. His wee.
His wee. Yeah. No, I hope everyone in the chat is enjoying it as well, and we're not just sitting in.
The chat is blowing up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, we love it. Of course, we love it. Oh, thank you, Marissa. Great. Yay. There's a great amount of girl power in the chat. Frederick is thinking there's a great amount of girl power in the chat. So I'm stepping back. Come on, Frederick. You can harness a bit of girl power, I'm sure. Vag power. Yay.
Oh yeah, veg power. That's the thing now.
Yeah. But I mean, we need vagina power as much as we need phallic power. Both things are really important. And a man must penetrate the woman, yes, but he must also allow himself to be swallowed and encompassed by the woman as well. So it's
penetrated as well.
Huh?
And sometimes penetrated as well.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's both.
I know.
So
You're like a child who steps into the middle of a conversation, Daniel. You're out of your element.
All I heard is the woman to be penetrated.
and then,
all right.
And then you felt you needed to contribute with your own desire for getting pegged, huh?
Hey, not my desire, but somebody's desire. And if it's somebody's desire, then I support it.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, so let me
the whiskey's flowing this episode.
Huh?
I said the whiskey is flowing this episode on my end. I don't know about you two.
Hell, you know what? I am going to have not a whiskey, but a rum. But that's a great idea.
Everybody is laughing in the chat, except for our resident Swede, who's like, I'm a prude. Don't reinforce the stereotypes, Frederick.
That is a great idea. I just got like a bloody amazing rum, so I'm gonna.
Shani's hating this right now.
Why is Shan hating it?
Because he's gonna edit this into an episode.
He doesn't have to edit. Just leave it unedited. It's fun.
It is fun. It is fun to be fair.
Does he have to edit it? Let the poor man get some rest. He doesn't need to edit this. Let's just go on. He can edit the whole thing where I fell out and put the cock on him. It's also kind of fun.
These are the.
I hope that Shan will take this bit from when you said, and then we put the cock on him, and everything up till now, and turn that into its own episode.
Yeah, and then we put the cock on him. Cut.
These are my favorite episodes that we do, where there's no boundaries. We can talk about what the fuck we want.
Yeah.
It's just three friends who genuinely get on with each other, and we can just talk about what the fuck we want. I love these episodes.
I fully agree. But actually, to get back to the cock.
I mean,
actually, what I wanted to say was it was incredible with Andre, who plays the trickster, because when they put the cock on him, I didn't personally put the cock on him. I had people to put the cock on him. Okay, so
you need people to put the cock on him.
It was a very big cock. We needed to be at least two. So anyway, so when they put the cock on him, he's one of those incredible performers.
Can I ask something about the cock? How do you stabilize the cock? You put the cock on him, but how do you stabilize it on him? Does he have like a string tied to his neck, or how does this work?
It wasn't easy. I mean, they came up with some kind of cool system. I can't exactly remember how it was. They came up with some kind of cool system. They made like a leather pant, which had like different straps that would then strap in different ways underneath his legs, sort of in between, and then on the back, and then in the front as well. It was difficult, but they got it done. I mean, the production team was incredible. They were really, really cool and very inventive as well. So he's one of these kind of performers that lives when he does a performance. I met him the first time when Shell and I was in Ukraine back in the summer of what was that? 2021, actually. Yeah. And he was doing a performance with some music that that Shell and I were doing, and I just knew it immediately. Like, this guy has got to be my video because he's fucking crazy. So he's just like he goes into the character with everything he is. So the minute they put the cock on him, he was that trickster character.
That sentence kills me every time.
Until they took the cock off him again, and then he became his normal self. You would hear him running around in the woods when we weren't shooting and we were setting up for the next shot. It was like screaming, singing crazy Ukrainian songs, folk songs and stuff like that, just dancing around. And I was like, aren't you getting cold, man? I mean, you crazy. He's like, no, I have so much energy. He said, it was just, he was mad, and it translates on screen. It's just,
I think
incredible.
For like a lot of actors, they have that thing that triggers them, and that kind of moves them from everyday life to the character they have to portray. And obviously, in this instance, it's a strap-on cock. I mean, it is what it is. But it's that trigger that goes from, okay, now I'm me to now I'm working, and this is the character I have to portray. And that, I think that's a good actor as well. Yeah. Someone who really can get into.
I mean, they all were
separate the two from like you and then the role.
I mean, the amount of creative power and energy that I have, I don't know if I've just been lucky and I've just, met the right people in Ukraine, but it seems to be like quite widespread. I mean, the creative force in Ukraine is insane. I mean, all of them, all 4 actors were incredible and dedicated and passionate and completely seemingly without any kind of barriers, really, with any kind of limits, like to what you could ask them to do. So they were so in it, like, and like I told you before, like they went above and beyond what I thought would be the limit. I said to them, you can stop now, but they were like, no, we're not doing it, we're getting this fucking in the box. And the same with a girl who plays a role in the whole movie, which is coming out on the 3rd of June. She just, all of us, the European team or whatever, she just blew us away with the intensity of her. She was just so intense, and she was so easy to, I had to, act with her. And so she was so easy to do shit with. It just felt completely safe, and this is anything goes. We can do anything, right, as long as it serves the art. And that
I think that's a
that was incredible.
I think that's a testament to you and your music and what you're doing, and that people have a belief in you and what you're creating. And I know you mentioned Ed earlier. When I saw Ed's like live show, he was amazed by how much these people put their bodies on the line for him, and in his kind of Ragnarok wrestling theater.
God, I wish I could see that thing.
Yeah, and it's that these people do this because they believe in the person that they're following to create this art. And whether that's you or whether it's Ed in what he does, it's because they follow you, and you've got a vision, and you're creating this beautiful thing, and they're like, okay, I'm all in, I'm going to do what I need to do. It's not because they're necessarily committed to their art or their craft. It's because they believe in the vision, and you've kind of inspired something in them. And that's beautiful. And I think you should probably take credit for that, and maybe not put too much credit on them. And I mean, I'm sure they're amazing actors in what they want, but if they hated what they were doing, I'm sure they would also step away and say, okay, it's too cold, I'm not doing this. So you should have the appreciation for it's tough, because it's hard to kind of be that way about yourself. But I think I love what you're doing. I think the album you're going to drop is going to be it's going to change this whole music scene. I love what you're creating. And I genuinely think that it's another level to what we've seen so far. And you should be proud of it. And I mean that with
but I'm so, Dan, I know you mean that, and I am very, very happy to hear you say that, and I am proud, of course. I couldn't help thinking when you were saying that. I couldn't this thing in from Braveheart, where he's talking to Robert the Bruce. If you just lead them to freedom, they'd follow you. So would I.
It's true though.
It's like
it's so hard to kind of accept that all these the whatever you're creating that these people like. And I guess it's probably the same thing like me and Matthias with the podcast. Like we probably get like messages from people saying, love the podcast, love what you're doing. It's like, what? That's weird. What do you mean? We just sit down and talk for like a couple of hours a week. So it feels very unnatural, but you also have to sometimes accept that you're doing something really cool.
Of course, and but it ties into this whole thing about what is a collaboration and how does art come about. It's a strange and magical thing in some sense, I mean. Also with Shell as well, the collaboration I have with him is just Shell Bratton, who I should also name drop here, who's been completely instrumental. No pun intended at all. In making sure that this album was finished, because I was going to finish it with Sebastian Gainsborough, who I had a fantastic collaboration. The aforementioned composer of The Northman, who I had a fantastic collaboration with. But of course, because of COVID, and I had to move, and all that, it didn't happen. So I was looking for a new collaborator, and Shell came in, and our collaboration also, again, it's a strange thing. Of course, Shell thought what I had already done with the EP was great, and he wanted to be a part of it. So he was excited about being a part of it. But I was also excited about working with Shell because I'd heard what he had done, and I could see how we could work together. And then so that excitement sort of translated through our work together. We didn't have a dry moment when we were working together. Not a single one. Like not a dry 2 minutes even. Like it was constantly just a creative flow. And the same with these people with this movie. So it's I of course need to feel proud about what I have done, but it is that constant feedback loop, right? You throw something at people, and if they respond in excited and passionate way, they throw something back at you, and then you throw something back, and it's just constantly like that, just like really good sex, by the way, so tying it all back to that,
tie it back together. No, it's I feel like it's a very British thing, and I think Americans probably struggle with this less, of kind of accepting their achievements. Maybe it's a European thing, but I know it's certainly like a British thing that we struggle with it. If we do something good, we're still kind of like, oh, maybe
not too bad, is it?
Yeah, it was all right. Sorry about that. We did okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do something and it's worth the credit, and it's tough to accept. But yeah, I'm excited for what you're creating. I think it's going to go down well. Matthias has obviously listened to it, and yeah, I think
I'm thrilled about it. I'm so much looking forward to see the end product, and also looking forward to taking all of this, Jonas, and then turning them into Dionysian rituals in the woods this summer.
Yes,
we're gonna have fun.
Yeah, we should do that at Fire in the Mountains. We should go and do some Dionysian shit.
We are going to. Oh,
absolutely,
planned, my friend.
Oh, great.
Jonas, where are you going to Fire in the Mountains?
Yeah,
Matthias, you're going to be at Fire in the Mountains.
I am. Everybody's going to be at Fire in the Mountains, my friend.
How the fuck do we get me to Fire in the Mountains?
Put you on a plane.
Jump on a plane, come.
Because I feel like there's an opportunity for us to do a live podcast and
Yes.
just
I won't be doing music actually at this one. I'm only doing food.
Okay.
But that's gonna be fun for the podcast as well, because the whole food is revolving around the story of Thiassi and that sort of thing. So we're digging a pit and trying to pit roast a steer and
I
and
should
all that
tell
sort
the
of thing.
story then.
Okay.
It's one of my
Yes.
favorite stories.
Matthias, you need to speak to Alex and Jeremy, and we need to figure this out.
Okay, cool.
We need to get me
I'm
out
down.
there
Be awesome.
because it will be too much fun not to get me out there.
Yes. We will get you out there somehow.
Yes, indeed.
Whatever this episode has been for the last, it's probably 2 hours now. I feel like it would be another level in person,
Yes.
or we might hate each other. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Or that. But no, we should.
Oh, we're gonna go and what are you gonna say?
I like. We should definitely go do some crazy rituals in the woods beneath the Grand Teton Mountains. The Teton.
Yeah.
The Tetons, that literally means the tits.
Of course it does.
For some reason, some French dudes, they were like plowing
Grand
through
tits.
the
We do
Wyoming-
Dionysian ritual.
Yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
like I'm like, what the hell, guys?
Dionysian rituals under the Grand Tit Mountains.
Right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that idea, and I mean, I think I feel again that we sort of, I don't know if we went deep enough into the subject matter. I mean, because I think, but it's also, I mean, it's also difficult to I don't want to lay everything out as well. I mean, music always has to be able to speak for itself. And it's not going to be entirely obvious, except for maybe a few places on the album that we are talking about sexuality, because it's not pornographic. I mean, if it's not like I've made a whole record of sex sounds, which would be a cool thing to do, I think, just recording people fucking and just making beats and melodies and that sort of thing out of that. That could be fun. But it was more like I wanted to explore sexuality from a lot of different angles through music and using a mythological language to do that in some sense. And that was the reason for all the research, both with Matthias and with Nena and a few other sources and so on, because I really like working in this way where you create a framework for your creative expression in some sense. And once you've created that world, then when you enter into the creative process, the actual process of creating the music, it sort of is easy because you can just pull out of this whole huge box that you've made already for yourself, right? So, so is there any kind of real purpose to this? I mean, the purpose is simply to explore sexuality from a mythological point of view. That is more or less the purpose to it, I would say. And you guys will have to be the judges to see if that made any sense, if that translated into anything good,
Yeah,
and that's
I personally think it did.
Well, you guys said you did, but I'm talking about also all the guys in the chat and that kind of thing.
Of course.
So
The general audience.
the general audience, yes, general public. I sometimes worry a little bit that it's a bit too weird.
Weird is good. Weird is good. No, because it's different, and it has.
I don't know. To me, it's kind of like the middle of the road. It's not too weird.
No, but it has purpose as well, I think, which is important. It's not like what you're doing is, it's not that it's it's not just weird for weird's sake. It has purpose behind it
Mhm.
and has meaning behind it, and that then gives its own kind of gravitas to take it to the next level. So it's not kind of just different for oh, I want to be different. It's you're doing your own thing and you're forging your own path, and that's what really excites me about this. Is that
I think maybe I might be revealing sort of how sort of small and petty I can be sometimes. But I just saw, I can't remember when it was, some time ago, I saw some band, some in this whole Viking scene, and that come out, and there was I don't know, tens of thousands of views on their thing, and it literally was just another one of those Viking bands that just bang a drum and goes something like that,
But that's the thing, that those bands are now becoming tenor penny.
And they are tenor penny. They are absolutely. But and I was just,
it's like glam rock back in the 80s.
Yeah, but I was still sitting and thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, if I'd just done that, but it's just like I could easily stand on some mountaintop somewhere with some kind of Viking clothes on and perhaps a couple of antlers and whatever.
The thing is that
like whatever.
But that's what makes what you're doing so much more special. The fact that because you've been in a position where you've kind of come out of Heilung, and you're in a very good position to kind of make a decision whether you want to lean into this, and kind of take not like the quote unquote easy route, and you can kind of follow that, or you can go, okay, I want to forge my own path. This is what I want to do. I'm going to take like I say, it's a harder road is not maybe the right word, but you want to take your own path and you want to make your own thing, make your own music. And I absolutely respect that. And
thank you, Dan. And I couldn't have done anything else but that. And so I really do operate from the point of view that anything worth doing, how is the saying goes, it's okay if it's hard, if it's worth doing, and many times it should be hard, and there should be a long road and that sort of thing. And I could never have looked myself in the eye in the morning if I had done something like what I just suggested earlier, like there's absolutely no way, what I mean? There is already one Einar Selvik, and he does it really well. So
but that's the thing though, you don't have to be the next Einar Selvik. You can be the next Jonas Lorentzen, and those two things don't have to compete with each other. They can be individual. There's
exactly no, absolutely. I am not. Yeah,
that goes. So you say, but I think that's the problem with all these other bands. They kind of see the popularity of Vojuna. They go. They will kind of want to follow this path and go, okay, I want to be the next Einar Selvik. I want to imitate this and be that.
Yeah.
And there is only going to be one Einar Selvik.
And they don't realize the age-old saying, that, there's only one Einar Selvik, and he does not share power.
Exactly. There is. Therefore, you need to create your own thing in your own space. And there's no reason why they can't be an Einar Selvik, a Jonas Lorentzen, and whatever else there is over here as well.
Whatever else, exactly. And like I also alluded to, I don't even think my next album is going to be in any kind of thing that you can call a for lack of a better word, it's a horrible word, but a Viking music thing.
Let me just stress one thing about what we have created, right? You came to me and you're like, Matthias, I want to dig deep into this like Nordic past that we have and how it connects with the Indo-European roots and all that stuff. And
Absolutely.
I think it's unfair for you, for lack of a better term, I guess, for you to classify it as Viking music, because it's not.
But it's going to be, don't you think? I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe it's going to be classified in that. I mean, honestly, those bands who make the so-called Viking music, they get classified as a lot of different things, sometimes heavy metal, right? So like you see Heilung being, in that sphere of like heavy metal. It's like, how the fuck is that heavy metal? And
how is that heavy metal? I mean,
it's just, and sure, I mean, there are some elements of the music that you're making that relate to the Viking music style and so on. It's founded on some mythology that relates to this stuff as well. But what we've done is that we've gone beyond the Viking Age. Look, people need to realize that the Viking Age is the lamest fucking time period in Scandinavia.
Matthias, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
No,
getting cancelled. We're getting cancelled.
Time period. You have to.
No, we've got 100. We've got 187 patrons who pay to hear us talk about this.
But
shut up and listen to it.
But what they need to realize is that what they get with us is the deeper perspective. It's the long-term perspective. La longue durée. We go deep into the past that existed before the Viking Age. That's what we have been working on with your material here. We're down in the 500s and the 400s and so on, which is like such a, if talk about mysterious and magic time period in Northern Europe, that's it right there. That's that time.
Migration period.
Yes. So there's so much more to explore there. And you guys were talking about Einar Selvik before. He says the same thing. Go beyond the Viking Age. Let's get back to that time period where we were doing some really awesome things, guys.
It's too easy to focus on just one. But I think this goes back to wrap this up, because I think we should probably wrap this episode up now. I think this kind of goes back to everything that goes with the Northmen and all this in general, that everybody wants to focus on just this time period. And I think when you start out and just get involved in this community, you kind of think everything has to revolve around just revolve around the Viking Age, and you want to learn everything you can about that. And then as you kind of learn more, it expands out. And you go, okay, there's all this before that led up to it, and there's all this after. And then to put that back into kind of perspective with the Northmen, I think, Jonas, when I went to watch it, me and Matthias got invited on press viewings to go see it. I rang you straight away after, and I was like, I love the movie, but I'm concerned that it's going to be too authentic for the everyday kind of like quote unquote Viking enthusiast. And I see that popping up more and more in kind of the Facebook groups of these people who are in these, maybe they're dipping their toes in this world, and they're upset by this film. And it's like, hang on a minute, this is
what are they upset about?
Well, I'm not sure, but it's kind of this is the most authentic movie that's probably ever been made, I think, around this world. He's genuinely tried his fucking best to make it as accurate as possible. And we will never be able to make 100% accurate film, because unless you've got a time machine, you can't do it.
I'll have to contend with that and say the most authentic movie is still Royal Deceit with Christian Bale. In terms of dress and scenery and all that stuff, I'll say that one is still more authentic.
Jonas,
that also makes it visually more boring though.
Yeah. it's extremely boring.
It's actually quite boring.
It's just a boring movie, really. I mean, Christian Bale is great, of course, in it, but he's always great. But I mean, I'm not going to contend with that because I can't actually remember that, and I don't know if I even could contend with it, even if I could remember it. But what I will say, you know, I mean, I can say a lot of things about the Northman. I thought it was really funny that he invited me to basically the character that I play in the movie and the song that I wrote was based on Bosa Saga, which is like this particular passage in Bosa Saga is extremely pornographic. He did not know that I was working on a project about you know, sexuality and was basing it in this mythological language from the Viking Age and before. So he did not know that. So I'm literally singing a pornographic song about a guy called Bosa who comes and meets the farmer's daughter, and basically, you know, he says things like, you know, I want to bring my steed to your wine well, you know, a red well of you know, so pussy, of course. And she says, oh, where's your steed? And he says, well, it's between my legs, my dear. But, you know, be careful with him because he's a bit shy. And then she grabs it at some point, and, you know, the steed is quite hard at the neck, she says. I mean, it's like filled with like this crazy pornographic imagery. And it's just so strange that he asked me to do exactly that one, because he didn't know. There was no way he could have known. So it was just another thing that's like, is it me? It's like, am I just
it's this huge throbbing penis that you're just projecting out there at any point.
I just project this sort of image of an extremely horny, impish kind of bacchanalian type. I don't fucking know, but I mean, but anyways, that's what happened. But I mean, getting back to the Northman, I think what Robert Eggers was inspired by the Northman was I think the same thing as I'm inspired, and many others of my peers and you guys included. I feel the Viking Age is a window into an earlier age, and I think that's why it's interesting. I think Matthias is right. The actual Viking Age is not really that interesting, to be honest. I mean, it's a lot of power grabs.
Will you just stop with trying to ruin this podcast?
No, but like, really
I'm trying to turn my drinking horns.
No, try to listen to what I'm saying.
I've got business in this. Fucking hell, Jonas.
No, because I'm saying two things at once, Dan. I'm saying the actual Viking Age is not that interesting, but the Viking Age is interesting because it is a window into an earlier time, in some sense. All the mythological material that we have from that time, the poetic traditions, the folkloric stuff, it's all a window into something primally human. And I think that's it's certainly what's inspiring me. And I think that's also what's creating this whole movement of people that are looking to this age to, in some sense, it's a kind of modernity, tiredness, in some sense, being tired with modernity and thinking modernity should be something else than what it is. I think, and I think that's really what it is with the Viking Age. It's finding inspiration, but it's not like when people were looking in the Renaissance time, when they were looking to a time where things make sense and men were men and smart and we could make amazing things and so on. I think it's much more primal than that. We're living in a time of the digital age, and everything's becoming less and less human. So we're looking to a time where things were more primally human, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I think that doesn't really matter.
I agree a lot with that. It is a search for sort of like a time period that can give us a sense of the more primal. The situation with the Viking Age is, of course, that is actually the time period where Scandinavia as a society or societies move from being their own societies to becoming Europeanized Christian societies.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, the thing that people latch on to with the Viking Age are the parts of that society that are still pre-Christian. That's usually what people are interested in, unless of course you're in the business of propping up your little nation state like Denmark or Norway or Iceland. Then you're interested in this is when we became Christian and civilized and all that stuff. So it's actually kind of funny that from the national Scandinavian perspective, this time period, the Viking Age as a time period, corresponds to I don't know, the Revolutionary War period for the US, for instance, right? It's a time period where we were founded, right? Whereas everybody else is like, oh, it's a time period where they're all like wearing wolf skins and like doing weird, funky rituals with blood sacrifice.
Yeah. Which it wasn't at all, but which a lot of the material that we have been given from that time period that has still survived is alluding to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually hearkening back to a much more ancient time. And I think also that's why you and I decided quite early on that we would do it in this weird 500s version of the Nordic languages, right? Instead of you doing it in Old Norse, because we were actually trying to harken back to something even older in some sense, and we were trying to create a spiritual language, or a language within which spiritual or mythological ideas could be expressed in, without the baggage of a lot of things. So I think I really think that's a real thing.
And to just to say a couple of things, thoughts that I've had. Yeah, so it's always good when you receive a piece of art. Either you go look at a painting, or you read a book, or you watch a movie, or listen to some music. It's always good to leave it for a little bit and then come back to
I'm sorry, this chat is just
They're still talking about boobs in the chat.
No, they're talking about the labia being the doors where you can enter through to the old age, and then you have to ring the doorbell. I mean, of course, referring to the clitoris. I love these guys.
Yes,
they're just too funny.
How wonderful!
Again, if you,
exactly
the chat,
of course, Frederick,
and it's like every week. And our honestly, we have the best chat I think of any podcast. We've built such a beautiful little community and Discord and the live shows. Honestly, if you listen to this and you want to join in, it just support us on Patreon. It's literally $4 a month. It's
I really cannot recommend it more. I mean, this chat is hilarious.
It's the price. It's the price of a cup of coffee for me or Matthias. If you want to take the next level up, it's buying each of us a cup of coffee a month. It's not a Mythology podcast. Why I get that wrong every single time. It's Patreon/Nordic Mythology podcast. And yeah, you get a bonus episode every week or most weeks, and it's just a lot of fun. You get to sit on the live episodes, and yeah, it's just good fun. It's good fun. You will enjoy it. The chat's going off. Obviously, you get to watch the episode, and it's absolutely worth it. We built I'm proud of the little community we've built. I really am proud of like this little group of people who enjoy this and us and talk about this, and they're friends with each other. It's a beautiful thing. And if you want to join it, just pop over to Patreon. And if we get to 200, me and Matthias are gonna apparently now it's me and Matthias. It's both of us. We're gonna be in coconut bikinis. And we're gonna do a live episode. We're gonna do an episode in coconut bikinis. We will make that episode Patreon only, because we don't need that going out to everybody in the world. We'll make that Patreon only.
Only dance.
Only dance.
But
Jonas, if you want to join us for that episode, you can also wear a coconut bikini.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh, let's do a coconut bikini story time.
Yes, okay, fair enough. All right.
There we go. There we go.
Let's do it.
That's perfect.
I'm sorry, Matthias, to interrupt you, but the chat was cracking me up. I thought those
That's
guys were
perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, maybe I should also like save that comment to for some other time. We could always talk Northmen.
I think you were about to say something really important. And I think people's brains are starting to melt. And
We've been going a long time now. We've been going a couple of hours, I think.
Yes. So yeah, I'll save that for another time.
Save it for later. I think
Yes.
I think you were onto something really interesting. But yeah, save it for later. I think so.
All right. Let's wrap this up. Jonas,
Yes.
I mean, you are welcome back anytime. I love these episodes with you.
Same.
You are. I think between me and Matthias, I haven't spoken to him about this, but I'm sure between us, you are the third unofficial co-host of this podcast. You know, whenever we
seem like that, isn't it?
Whenever
It
we
is.
need somebody, you're there. Whenever we need to do an extra episode, you're there. Yeah, I think we both have a lot of love for you and what you do, and we will support you all the way in whatever path you choose.
Oh, that's really heartwarming, and the same to you guys. And I really enjoy coming on. I enjoy doing the story time, and yeah, we're friends, so it makes sense. Why shouldn't we be sitting around and chatting shit for hours? It makes sense. And then just sending it out to people, see how they respond.
I think that's what makes the best episodes, though. I think they're like we are genuinely three friends. Even though we haven't met yet in person, I think we are three friends who can sit down and just whatever topic you put in front of us, we're going to be able to talk about. And that's what's fun about these episodes is that we start out at point A and then we end up at point fucking S.
Who knows? Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
Whatever happens, and I love that, and it's it's a lot of fun, and I think genuinely people enjoy listening to these episodes more than the others. There's no force in it. It's just kind of a natural conversation between people.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think people are going to relate to a lot to what you're creating, what you're doing, and I'm so excited for when the album releases, because yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be big.
So am I, and I have some big news coming up as well about live shows and stuff like that. I mean, we're playing Castlefest, which is one thing, but
yep, very much looking forward to hearing about all of those big news.
Yes.
It's coming up.
And we no matter what, we will meet at Midgard's whether we have anything to announce or not. We're all going to be at Midgard's and
yes,
regardless of anything else outside,
regardless of any kind of announcement that might come about this thing.
Regardless of anything,
definitely meet there.
We're all going to be in the same place at the same time. So something is going to happen. All right, let's wrap this up. Matthias, let people know.
Yeah. I just want to say before
find you.
Dan, before you say that,
Jonas,
go. The chat was giving a lot of love, and I just want to say to all you guys as well in the chat, love you back. That's all. Okay, go on with the plugs.
There we go. Matthias, let people know where they can find you.
You can find me and my general shit show on Instagram, and also you can always check out my website. Just like put in my name, matthiasnorvig.com, and you can find me on there as well.
Jonas, where can people find you?
Well, it's Instagram is the best place as well. It's just at Nebala Music, Nebala Music. Yeah, of course, hit up on YouTube as well. There's quite a lot of video material and more to come. So just search for Nebala on YouTube, and you'll find you'll see the video that we've been chatting about and other stuff. So yeah, that's the best place to find me.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what you release. If you want to follow me, it's Daniel_Farrand1 because some fucker still has Daniel_Farrand. Obviously at Horns Voting. I mean, yeah, this episode it's been a good release for me. I know we've spoken about sex, and I tend not to speak about my private life too much. Well, on here I try not to, but I'm going through. It is what it is. I'm going through a divorce at the minute, and this episode has been a big release for me, and it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed both of your companies. Yeah, it is what it is. At some point you have to put it out into the universe there.
Yeah.
We're with you all the way, man.
We're with you, man.
You have our support.
Absolutely.
I know you both are, but like I say, I feel like it's one of those things that I hate people who kind of make these announcements just on Facebook. Like they make these special Facebook posts just to say that these things are happening in their lives. Like that's not what I want to do. So I feel like I wanted to try and at least put it in somewhat a natural environment of like, this is happening. This is what's happening. It is what it is.
Makes sense.
It's one of those things that it's been a long time coming, unfortunately, and we're there. And yeah, so this has been a lot of fun for me in a very tumultuous week. Is that the right word?
I think
it's a good word.
Yeah. So it's been a chaotic week, and this has been a very nice kind of experience for us to sit here and talk amongst friends. So I appreciate it very much.
We appreciate you too.
Let's end it on that. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much to the both of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. There we go. That was a fun episode.